What were the things that you learned though, being around Bird and that machine?
Obsession with it.
Okay.
Like what's so cool about Bird and Slim that I've never seen with like any other label people, like Hit Factory in Miami is where they work out of. They have multiple rooms in Hit Factory just booked out indefinitely. And with no artist plan of who's coming or whatever, but just if you're an artist there and you want to get in the studio, that room is already booked out. And like Bird and Slim are in there more than artists, and they're not trying to make music. They're just in there thinking about it, listening to music, seeing what the artists are coming up with. And so I just think that like obsession with it was something new for me, because I mean I was really into music and I obviously cared about it deeply and was obsessed with it, but it was this introduction to like, if you want to make a living out of this and you want to like be really gifted and different at this, you have to be obsessed with it. And to be like honest, there were artists that came after me that were more obsessed at the time that I watched propel past me, which was like just a lesson in self. Like Young Thug came to Birdman like maybe a year and a half ish after I signed, and I just watched, but I knew that he was like obsessed with it on a different level. Like I don't think I'd even unlocked that potential inside of me yet of like just living in the studio. Like I watched Thug just make hundreds and hundreds of records and just be in there and live it, you know?
When you saw Thug show up out of nowhere, did you think that he was going to go on to make that many hits?
Yeah, like, I mean, I think Thug's success surprised anybody, but I wasn't surprised that he was like a special artist. I think that was obvious to everybody. He was so different and like, dude, he just had such a unique style. Like, the way he dressed, the way he moved, the way he recorded, the sound. Like, I was listening to him do things on records that like Danny Glover, that record was just so different at the time. So I was just blown away. Everybody knew that it was special though. Even Bird was just like, dude, this dude's gonna be something different. So I don't think anybody was surprised at his success. Anybody that can continue that and perpetuate that over, you know, a decade, that's impressive though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about those internet streets at the same time though too, because growing your fan base online, that's a new world that we're in right now. Back in the day, you knew it was the flyers, you had to go to the open mics and all of this extra stuff.
Yeah.
What were some of the tricks of the trade that you used to get yourself heard and get your buzz going online?
I mean, I think it's something that I'm still learning. Like, you know, my come up at the time, it was like I started dropping music pre-streaming era, you know? So I did the CDs stuff too. Like before the internet, what I would do is like I was selling weed at the time. I would take all the money I made from selling weed. I would go press up these thin slit CDs, and I would press up thousands of them, and I'd go give them out at the let outs of concerts all throughout Florida. So like if an artist came to a show, I'd go post up, or me and a couple people would post up after the show and just give out thousands of CDs. So I did that too.
Okay.
And then as the internet stuff, as the internet stuff blew up, I learned that too. It's funny because nowadays, like, artists complain a lot about like having to make content or having to do the internet stuff, because all of us as artists, we just want to make music and then it blow up. But I think that like we're at a really like lucky time right now, so people should not complain about maybe having to learn to make content of these things, because back in the day you had to do what the fuck I was doing, or you only had to go through a label gatekeeper. So I've like learned as it's gone. Like, you know, I came up in the Dat Piff era too, where like I was dropping mixtapes on Dat Piff, and I think for me what's just worked is just being open and honest about my journey as an artist. And like, so my fans, they connect with me because of things that I've been through. Like, you know, I coming up the way I did, or like I lost my father to suicide. I've just talked about all this stuff and I've been real open. And so the people that are drawn to what I have come. And so I'm not the best at content. I'm not the best at internet marketing. Like, I'm really not anywhere gifted. And there's a lot of artists out there that are a lot better at content or better at making things that go viral. I've never really like been particularly good at any of that. I've just been really genuine, and I've utilized the internet every step to like connect with the people that do listen to my shit.
When you lost your father to suicide, man, how did that impact you musically and just emotionally, man?
I mean, emotionally, it just fucked up my life. Like, at the time, to be real, I was 16, so I mean, it did a lot of things. For one, I always looked at my dad as this like indestructible like statue. I think all kids look at their dad like that. Like I looked at him as the strongest dude in the world, and you know, he had like a opioid addiction and things like that developed from a construction accident, and so I think for me, it shook up my reality in the sense of like. I understand that people like harbor a lot of pain that they don't share, and so that was different. And at the time, it kind of sent me on a more like self-destructive path. You know, like I just didn't give a fuck about anything. But in a weird way, it propelled me more toward music too, because I so didn't care about the world and like a job and a family, all these things that like are a lot of people's concerns. I genuinely didn't care about any of that. And so I was like, I'm just going to do music, because even if it doesn't work, I'll just like ride my motorcycle and rob gas stations or whatever. Like I don't think I like cared that much about like just life in general. Yeah. And in a weird way, it really like, I was into music at the time, but it really led me to music as an outlet, because that was the only thing that I could like channel any emotion into. Like I really made a lot of music after my dad passed away. I kind of scrapped all the music I had made before, and I just had a different level of depth as an artist. Like I had been through things and shit prior to that, but it just completely altered who I was and gave me this like depth as a person that I don't think I would have been a unique artist without, which is weird, you know? So it's a weird thing to balance, because it's weird saying that you like were inspired or got propelled through something that is tragedy, but that's kind of the nature of life, is that like we take our pain as our gift in a weird way, you know?
At what point do you feel like you were able to cope with the pain that you had been feeling all of that time and actually move forward and have a life without the grief?
Yeah, like I think honestly, I've been sober for about 4.5 years now. Okay. I think getting sober was the thing, because like from losing my dad to, 4 years ago, I was like a borderline drug addict, an alcoholic for sure. I completely like just drowned myself in weed and alcohol and pills and, coke, all that type of shit. And so I don't think I ever really like moved past it. I think I just functioned and I made music and I put on this face. But I think a lot of those were like hindrances of why I didn't succeed like in the early days of Cash Money and stuff like that. I was like it's weird. I had this outward success at that time, but like internally I was like a really struggling kid. Like I just was super depressed. I didn't have a positive self-image of myself. Yeah. I think I was just really unhappy. I was not confident at all. And so it was getting sober that like really opened me up to healing and like just being able to move forward and forgive my dad and forgive myself and just start learning to cope with things in a positive way, because all of the painful things that we go through, if we learn to channel that into something that builds us up instead of something that destroys us, it's a really positive thing. Like if you take the pain of what you're going through and you go get in the gym or you get sober, you commit to treating the people in your life better so that you don't do to them what your parents did to you. If you, use that as motivation, it really will alter your trajectory as a person. And so I think I say that all the time, like our pain is our gift, because if you really learn to use it as a gift, it will be positive.